Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Josh from MitsuTimes. Today, my guests are Craig Nowak and Soto from Soto Tuning Solutions. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How about you?
We're good.
Man, I'm great. The weather is beautiful. It's the only way I could be better if I was out there racing right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, Craig, I know the future of the Evo. We'll get into that. Is a little off, for what we were hoping. But let's talk about the last setup on the Evo, because for a while, you guys were, low tens, and then you hit that 9, and then it just seemed like that was it for you. Let's talk about the setup on that first.
Yeah. So the last setup we went with was a Zona Rotor 8269, and that was with a BS manifold, forward-facing manifold, and BS Fab did an awesome job with that. It all came together real nice, and so our plan with the car was we've always wanted to crack a 9 with this thing ever since I bought it, and doing that with this 8269 was kind of our goal. I mean, with it being like this, basically it's a 6470, but we can basically call it in PTE terms. But that our goal kind of was to eventually compete for World Cup in Maryland, and we didn't quite get there. The car had a failure this year, so we kind of just got away from it. But yeah, the setup, as far as that goes, that was just the new turbo setup for us for this year, and that was a big jump from our 62 that we had on there previously. And the car did awesome, but it was just time to move on once the failure happened this year. But
well, in anybody who's raced these cars, the Ford G63, one of the big issues with them has always been cylinder pressure. When you're making that much power per cylinder, it's tough to keep the heads clamped down. I remember, 10 years ago, when people were starting to make some bigger power and it was becoming more common, you get guys blowing freeze plugs out left and right because you just couldn't keep these heads strapped down. And unfortunately and surprisingly, the motor that he had actually had one of the head stud holes that we were a little bit worried about the whole time, and it's something that we kept a close eye on because he had bought that motor used, but it was only idled, kind of one of those deals.
Okay,
it was already built, the short block was, and obviously we were going to go through everything, because when you buy stuff secondhand, you hope for the best, but it's the industry that we're in. You don't always get the best. So he tore it all down in his garage and went through everything, checked all the the clearances, and made sure the bearings were good, the rings were good, checked the block, everything was good. We put it back together, and when he went to strap the head back on, one of the head stud holes had a couple threads pulled out of it. So basically what it was is somebody that had the motor before me put too long of a bolt through the timing cover area, and it protruded into one of the stud holes for the head studs. And when I went to go pull out the old head studs, that I think they were what were they? Cosworth studs, I believe they were. And so I went to go pull those out to put the ARP 625 pluses in there. And when I went to go do that, I'm like, wow, this stud's coming out like shit. And so come to find out, yeah, somebody put too long of a bolt through the timing cover side when the previous owner had it, or whoever it was. And so that ended up flattening the threads out basically on the way out. So but it always torqued down fine. And I kind of, it was something like he said, we were kind of keeping an eye on it. And, it got us through a couple seasons, but we're not really sure if that was the failure point this year. Kind of got into it, and I wanted to go retorque the head studs just to double check everything, and everything seemed to be good still there. So obviously the head just, I don't know, I had fatigued the studs after so many passes, and it finally just said, I've had enough.
Just life.
The initial setup and iteration of the block and head package had just what was it, a standard Cometic head gasket?
Yeah.
And I mean, we had nonstop issues with that setup, being that the block wasn't O-ringed. A big thing for us that we found that really helped was he switched to the
Vulcan SCE Vulcan cut ring,
which it's, I'm sure you're probably familiar with them, but to those people who aren't, it's the next best thing to O-ringing your block. That was a big game changer for us, being able to push the car a little bit harder. But we still had it in the back of our heads, and we're still monitoring that, that cylinder pressure, and still fighting to keep the head down. So that ended up being, the final straw with this motor was, he made that pass, and it was moving. It went a 960. I know everybody says it, but it really did have more in it. We just couldn't keep that head clamp down.
I mean, that was basically our A to B pass just for the day. I mean, it was a testing tune we were running, and the car was probably around mid-8s for horsepower, and we had another 150 to throw at it. Yeah, and that was just an easy pass for us. We were just trying to get the slipper valve dialed in, and we got it on that 960 pass. But like I said, the motor just had enough and it was just not very happy at that point. So we thought about it a little bit afterwards. We were happy. I mean, at that point, it was like, what, hey, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. It's fixable. We got our 9-second pass that we've been fighting to get, over the last couple of years. The previous year, the FP 0 I had on the car probably would have done it easily. I actually had the mile per hour for it, but the second pass that I did, it would have been last August of 2022. The clutch ended up letting go on me.
Oh.
So that year I should have had my 9-second pass on the 0, no problem, but the clutch let go on me.
We knew we had the 60-foot dialed in last year when the monolock exploded after the car came screaming out of the hole harder than it's ever left before.
Yeah. It's always something with these cars, man. When you start making power, it's just like, okay, what's next?
Yeah, what's the next thing to break?
Yep. So
great 60-foot and monolock is left to chat.
Yeah, exactly. So, at that point, I was like, okay, I got another. The part of it was I had a twin disc in there, an XZD twin disc with the stock 2-piece monolock, system that they come with, which I know everybody is going to yell at me, but I left it in there. I should have put the monolock actually in there from ACT, and that was my fault, and we had that pop apart on us, and so I'm like, okay, I got an ACT monolock sitting on the shelf in the garage at home. I'll go home and do that. And as I had the trans out, I'm like, you know what? I think it's time. We'll send the trans over to TRE, and we'll get the ultimate ratio going, and put a 411 final drive in it at that point. And this would have been September of 2022, or this would have been August of 2022, and we were trying to get the car together for shootout in late September that year.
Yeah.
And we ended up making it, obviously, but at that point, the clutch, I think we made like 3 passes on the twin disc, and it was just done. It was started slipping on us, and we made it to the eliminations of that 1050 index, and I think I made it past my first elimination round, won that one, and then after that, the clutch, it was just gone. It was time to pack it up and load her up and watch everybody else enjoy their time left. So
freeze to death.
Yeah.
The car did what a lot of people have probably been through. It teases you. That last pass, the car went 10-0 on a slipping clutch and just didn't have enough to give him that 9-second pass.
So we were very frustrated that day, but we're like, you know what? It's there. We know the 0 can do it. It's been proven. We know it's a 9-second turbo, especially the way I had the car set up. It's just, every time we'd go for it, something else would just not be ready for the rest of the pass. So we never finally got it until this year, but we knew what we were going for and what our goal was going to be for as far as the World Cup. Just to be able to compete on that level, it's something I always wanted to do, and that was what I had set in my mind. I wanted to race in the that would have been the Mean Street class, I believe.
Yep.
And really, that was the reason behind the Zona Rotor Turbo is, he'd always gone with FP, and he's had such good luck with them, and so it was kind of what do they have to offer that fits that class, and that was
their answer.
That was their answer. You know, everybody knows that Precision has their new class-specific turbo out, the 6470.
6470. This is technically a 6469 point something, but
yeah. So we figured, why not? They've been good to us in the past. We've always been really happy, from his black to the Zero. They've always really performed better than expected.
I mean, just the customer service that FP offers alone was why I always went with them. I love their customer service. I mean, I always dealt with Wyatt or Robert, you know, and they're just awesome people, man. They're out there to help you out, and you know, they always have an answer for anything you know, any questions you have. So they've been an awesome part of my journey as far as when I got the car till now, and so I definitely, you know, I appreciate everything they've done for me too.
The tough part though is what everybody faces. You know, it takes a big budget to get these cars to this level.
For sure.
And it takes an even bigger budget to maintain the cars on these levels, because, you know, once you're making 4-digit horsepower, or at least 4-digit horsepower capable, you're putting these cars through just
abuse.
Yeah. Next level abuse.
I mean, yeah, you're talking 5 times the power it came from the factory.
Right. I mean, yeah. Power per cylinder on a 4-cylinder, you know, you got to think about that. And
that's exactly where I was going with that, is, you know, we live in this YouTube era where people are kind of desensitized and detached from what the power levels really are and what it really means.
For sure.
Everybody hears 1,000 horsepower, 1,000 horsepower. That's all you see on YouTube is, you know, this made 1,000, this made 2,000,
10 years ago, like, oh my God, you know.
But at the end of the day, especially with the 4G63 platform and any 4-cylinder for that, when you're making 1,000 horsepower, man, that's so much cylinder pressure per hole, because you're doing it with, you know, half the cylinders. It's a lot of strain on everything. It's crazy, and it's even crazier because the vast majority of people just don't understand how fast that really is.
Definitely.
You know, we get so used to seeing all over the internet and TV, and, you know, these guys that are running 2,000 plus horsepower, and they're running 6s, or, you know, they're running, you know, bottom 4s, high 3s in the 8th, and man, the average person, you could put them in a 700 horsepower car, and you could tell them it was running 7s. They'd probably believe you, because people are just they don't understand. They don't get it. So it's a lot of power. It's a lot of money. The only thing that I'm kind of bummed out on is, you know, the car made 4-digit horsepower, but the next step to sustain it was the fuel system, and that was just, now you're talking about mechanical fuel pump, another rail, a new intake manifold, another set of injectors,
fuel cell, and,
you know, and it
starts to add up.
Yeah, you know, there goes another $10,000 trying to.
You just get to a point where you're like, okay, where do you stop? You know,
right? Oh yeah.
There's always going to be somebody faster. So where do you really stop? You know.
Yeah.
What makes you happy? So, you know, like I said, my overall goal was going to be 9s with the car ever since I bought it. I bought the car in 2017. It was bone stock. But you know, and
he bought it in 2017, bone stock, and then he met me, and some beers and bad influence later. Here we are.
Yeah, pretty much. That's actually how we became friends, man. He had an Evo 9 at the time, and that needed a clutch. He had just gotten it, and from the previous owner, and, you know, the previous owner fried the clutch. I mean, it was literal just shreds of clutch inside the housing.
Yeah, it looked like a bird's nest.
It looked like a bird's nest. So we met, and I went over to the shop that he was tuning at the time, and you know, I'm like, hey man, I was like, you know, I know how to wrench. You know, I've been doing it for years and years and years. So I was like, you need a hand with that, let me know. And that's kind of how we became friends, and started this whole journey with my car, and, you know, it's been a wild ride for sure.
Heck yeah.
Sorry, we're bouncing around on you a lot. I know you have a list that you want to.
Yeah, we're getting off topic here.
No, you're good. Well, I wanted to sidetrack myself and say, you know, I think it's, you know, speaking of 4 digits, I think it's worth taking this time to applaud you both for, your car sits on top of the stock frame dyno list and the 64 millimeter being the only 1,000 horsepower 64 millimeter on our list. So,
Sure.
Hats off to you both. That's definitely quite an achievement.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for us, that was a major milestone also. And, we always wanted to make a name for ourselves in the community. I mean, everybody in the community is awesome. We not like, we're not pioneers of this industry by any means. We know that. There's hats off to the guys that have been doing this for years and years with the 4G platform. Dave Busher and Dan Busher and Boostin, obviously. I mean, all these guys that have been pioneering this platform for years and years and years. We wanted a piece of the pie, and share some of the glory that comes along with it.
Definitely.
Especially, growing up, buying, Sport Compact and Import Tuner and seeing, John Shepard and his 1G tail and those,
there you go.
those nines,
another big
those
name.
eights,
There you go.
those sevens, and you're just like, man, you grow up looking up to these guys, and then you just, you want to be there. You want to be a part of that. Everybody wants, to be a part of something, and especially when you're passionate about it.
Definitely.
It's just, it becomes a big thing for you, and it was really cool to be able to do what we did with that Evo. I would have liked to lean on a little bit more, but like I said, the fuel system became our
next issue.
Yeah, we got the 4-digit number, but we were definitely cranking up the fuel pressure.
We were taxing. We were taxing that fuel system, that's for sure.
Base pressure was up around 70 psi, and injectors were maxed out.
We wanted it all, but we had to compromise certain things to make it happen. So
I did try to twist his arm and convince him to add a third pump and a second rail, but
that might have been coming in the future if the failure wouldn't have happened this year. That might have been in the future for it. But
I'm confident I could have convinced him to run the credit card if the head would have stayed down.
Yeah, I think he's very persuasive when it comes to me wanting to go down the track and go faster. So
I love when he spends money.
That's a good friend, yeah.
That's the best kind of spending. And that's another story too, as far as me getting the car and everything else. I mean, like you said, I know you got your list, so I won't ramble on to that yet, but.
Well, let's get into it. What was it that made you choose this car in the first place?
Well, so I attended my first shootout. This would have been, actually, I should probably go back even further. I want to say I bought my first 2G Eclipse. It was a front-wheel drive GST, and that thing made like 300 wheel horsepower at the time. And I was 21, 22 years old at that point, and I was like, man, this thing's a rocket, and. Little did I know what that was going to trickle down to in the long run. But, I ended up attending my first shootout. I'm going to say it was 2013. And, I went there with a bunch of my friends, and, I'm watching all these Evos and all these Mitsubishis go down the track. And I'm like, man, I want to do that one day. I want to be that one of the guys going down the track and have all these people supporting me, all my friends, things like that. And I'm like, man, I want to do that someday. So, at the time I wasn't in a position to really get into that, but, I had my 2G, like I said, and I enjoyed that, and attended that first shootout, and that was kind of what bit me there.
That was the spark.
That was the spark, yeah, definitely. I mean, that. To be honest with you, I've never missed a shootout since 2013 either. I love the event. I love supporting that event. It's a great time. It's a big. I mean, and everybody knows that goes. It's like a big reunion.
Oh, yeah.
You meet people there that you've never met before, and then you see them that following year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and you're like, hey, how you been? It's been a year. What you been up to?
Right. How's your kids?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have this specific group that we've been friends with for years and years. And, we don't talk outside of the shootout, but every time we see each other every year, they got a couple of GST and GSX Eclipses, and we camped out with them that first year and, drank some beers with them. And that's been like our shootout friends every year now. So,
yeah.
And to be honest with you, I mean, it's going to sound kind of crappy, but I can't even remember their names. I just know what they look like, and we know each other when we go. So that's about it.
Sounds amazing.
So that started my whole journey down this path. And then I want to say it was 2017. I bought my first Evo. I ended up having a 1G GSX before that, before I got the Evo. It was an all original 68,000 mile GSX. I mean, that thing was pristine. And, I shouldn't have sold the car, but, when money talks, people people are offering you way more than you paid for it. It's like, okay, I mean, don't get me wrong. I wish I would have held on to it till today's standards because, wow, the prices on these things are insane now. But so I had that car, and then I sold that, and that ended up letting me acquire my first Evo, which was, the Rally Red Evo one. And that kind of snowballed into this effect here. So like I said, I just always wanted to be one of those guys out on the track and going fast and, pushing these cars to their limits. And, I just, over the years, gotten faster and faster from a stock platform. And, and it's been a great journey. Really, it really has. I've met a lot of cool people, and I'm happy the path that I went down with that car for sure.
You still going to attend the shootout even though you don't have a Mitsubishi?
Oh, you have to.
Good.
Yeah, definitely have to. I mean, and that'll trickle into one of these questions coming up. But I did buy something new, and
going to the shootout.
Part of the reason me buying this car was because I didn't want to miss out on the shootout. I wanted something that would compete in the classes that they offer, and I know we're going to get into that a little later, but definitely had to pick up something that could allow me to continue going to the event and supporting it. That was for sure. I mean, I was between this and another thing, which, like I said, we can talk about when we get to that point. But
definitely,
that was my actual part of my big decision. My big final decision was I want to race at the shootout. I love the event, and I definitely don't want to stray away from it. So that was the reason why buying this next platform.
So you lovingly call the car the Carnage Evo, and I just have to know the name behind that.
Yeah, so it was Rally Red Evo on my Instagram handle for a long time, Rally Red Evo 8. And so my brother, actually, he lives in Florida, and he was a VA guy. And he comes in town to visit one time, and I was like, hey, you got to go for a ride in this thing. He's like, oh, it's a 4-cylinder turbo, whatever. I'm like, okay, go for a ride. So and this guy's, he's an ex-Marine. He's one of those guys. So I have a video of this somewhere too. So we get in the car, go down the road, and the car's making like 800 at this point, and this is on the zero. And took him for a ride, and he was mind blown. Needless to say, and so he gets out of the car. He's like, "Dude, this thing's like something out of a comic book." and I'm like, you know what? I was like, one of my favorite villains when I was a kid was Carnage from the Spider-Man series. I'm like, and he's red, and it makes sense. I'm like, you know what? We're gonna start calling this thing the Carnage Evo. So that's kind of the nickname we got for it. And lo and behold, he goes back, sells his V8 that he had. He had a Hemi something or whatever, but he ended up buying this is something I tried to get him away from, but at the time he was just so excited to get something turbo 4-cylinder. He ended up getting a 2019 STI. And I told him, hey, whoa, now we're enemies. That can't happen. We're not friends anymore. We're not family. And so, jokingly, but, Evo and Subaru guys always have that rivalry.
That was going to be their origin story.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of cool, man, just to be able to influence even somebody that, has never been into this kind of, 4-cylinder deal that, I influenced somebody enough to make them say, hey, wow, this is a whole different world that I want to try and be a part of, So that was pretty cool. And that's kind of the backstory on the whole Carnage Evo thing, man.
That's one of the most fun things too, is when you have these cars, especially with the Evo, to people like us who are in this industry and big enthusiasts, it's it's one of those legendary JDM cars that everybody knows. But to the average person, most people don't know what an Evo is. They have no idea what it is. They've never seen one. You don't see a lot of them on the road, and if you do,
and if you're not in this community, you have
don't
no
notice
idea.
them. Yeah, and
I've had people say, "Dude, nice STI," and I'm like, "Don't ever say it again. How dare you?"
But it's cool when you can take people out and expose them to these cars, and especially when you can take them for a ride, because the average person doesn't realize, the average person, when you say fast car, they think Mustang, they think Corvette. Camaro,
anything with a V8, they're like, oh yeah, that's power, and
not
then
a
you show them something
car.
that's, yeah, exactly. Right. You show them a 4-door sedan that's only got this little 4-cylinder, 2-liter 4-cylinder, and it's just got a big turbo strap to it, and they don't know what's coming. You take them for a ride, and it blows their mind, and it just changes people's lives, man. It's actually one of them things too. Like I loved when people would say like, oh, my Scat Pack or my Hellcat would take that thing on, and then I'm like, all right, I'll take you for a ride sometime. I take them for a ride. They're like, wow. They're like, I've never been in anything that fast. I'm like, yeah, exactly. You have no idea what's out there now.
There's nothing better than when you make somebody sell their car and buy an Evo or a DSM.
Yep.
Yeah, because they go for a ride, they experience that all-wheel drive and that turbo kicking in, and you just want to, how do you not want to be a part of that? You know?
Definitely.
Definitely.
It's addicting.
It really is. Yeah, I wish somebody would have told me that years and years ago.
I'm with you. I've been doing this a long time.
Yep.
So, Craig, you mentioned it earlier just for a second, but you said the Evo was pretty much bone stock when you got it. So there was nothing that the previous owner had done?
This
back, I think.
This previous owner had I want to say it was catback exhaust on it. Other than that, it was bone stock. The guy had it. He'd owned it. This was an 03 Evo. He had owned it since 04.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was second owner of the car, and it was a Michigan car, so, it's got the typical underbody rust. But that was kind of the point where I got to, too. I'm like, you know what? I was like, if I'm gonna turn something into a drag car or, a street strip car, whatever, I was like, I want to do it with this chassis because it's already kind of, it's not a pristine chassis, you know what I mean? So if I cut into it or anything like that, it's not going to hurt my feelings as much as if it was like a, super clean, low mileage,
RS or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, me personally, I couldn't bring myself to cut into something that nice. It just, it's just one of them things that are on, if they're out there and there are not very many of them left, and why ruin it? So it's like, I got this one that had some rust underneath it and things like that. I'm like, you know what? We'll go with it. So we'll just, I won't have hard feelings tearing this thing apart. So, I bought it bone stock, and I drove it like that until I met Soto about 3 months. And Soto influenced me, and we got in. I mean, like I said, I always wanted to race these things. So we, once we got linked up, and first thing I think we did to the car was we left the stock 8 turbo on it. I think we turned it up on 93, and it made like 330 wheel horsepower.
We put a 3-port in it and tuned it on open source.
Yep, open source. Yep, stock ECU. So. Made like 330 wheel horsepower. I think I did that for like 6 months, something like that. And then we went to no, it wasn't that long. I'm sorry. We went to E85 shortly after that, probably 3 months later after that, because I obviously wanted more power. So then I think we made somewhere around 370, 380 on E85 at that point on the 8 turbo, and that was where I ended up finishing the year off with that car or with that setup. And then the following year, found me a 9 turbo, turned it up on E85, made roughly 420 wheel horsepower and like 380 torque, somewhere in that range. And that was when I think I started getting to the track and actually getting more involved and getting serious about where I was heading with the car. I think my first pass probably would have been, I think I was on the 8 turbo actually when I made my first pass in the car, and I think it went like a 1270 or something like that on the E85.
I remember that pass. I have it on video.
Yeah. He likes to give me shit about that. He double balled me, and then I was still a rookie, and he never lets me live it down to this day, but he did beat me that day with his Evo. But that's part of being a good friend, giving your friends shit about stuff, right?
Absolutely.
So,
and anytime he gets a little too confident, a little too cocky, I have to remind him that I'm still undefeated against him.
Gotta give him a reality check, yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you what, though. My T case lasted every bit of 50, 60 passes. His only made about 3. He had an Evo 9 ACD T case, so obviously they're not the best. So, but yeah, I mean, that was still the original T case in my car ever since 2017. I never touched it.
Wow.
So
literally, my next pass after racing him, I exploded that T case.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so that was kind of like, pointing fingers.
So, Craig, when you were handed the keys to that car, did you have any goals in your head, any quarter-mile goals, or you just knew that you wanted to go to the shootout and race it?
Yeah, I just knew I wanted to be part of the shootout. I was never, autocross never really interested me that much. But like I said, ever since I went to that first shootout in 2013 and I was watching these guys fly down the strip, and their Evos and, DSMs, and I was just like, man, I want to be part of that. So my first original goal with the car, I want to say once I met Soto is when I started getting my goals together here because, he was a big influence on a lot of this, to be honest with you. I mean, he had been tuning for years and years before that, and, he'd had a lot of experience with these cars and things like that. So he kind of taught me, quite a few things along the way, to be honest with you. Me being a DSM guy before that, I had a little bit of knowledge, but not as much as he had from his years and years of experience.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, my original goal was, I was thinking I wanted to run the 1250 index, obviously for shootout. And, once I made that 1270 pass on the 8 turbo, we never ended up having a chance to do that. So we went right to the 9 turbo the following year, and I think that was the first year I ran the 1150 index.
Yep.
I think I want to say I placed maybe 3rd or 4th in the eliminations. But I took out the number 1 qualifier that year, actually, which was pretty nice. I didn't expect that. So that was pretty cool. And the guy came up to me, the number 1 qualifier, was like, hey, take it all the way, which, like I said, it's a big community there. I love the love from everybody, and, it's just like a big family get-together. So I thought that was really cool. It was my first event I raced with the car. I had the number 1 qualifier in the class come up to me, and I thought it was a big deal. And he shook my hand and said, take it all the way, man. And I was blown away, man. The level of support, I just couldn't believe it.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, man. So that year, I went with the 1150 index, and I want to say the following year is when I went to the 1050 index on the black turbo. And that was the year I won that year. We won the 1050 index the following year. That was kind of like, okay, now what? Now what do I want to do? Do I want to continue with the 1050 index and stay where I'm at? Or do I, push further? So I think I did the 1050 index the following year, which is the year the clutch started slipping, and that year, like I said, that was just a horrible year. And then this year was going to be the 950 index for us, but that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
So, and it would have been a good time. I got a lot of buddies that race in the 950 class as well. And it's always a good time when you can race against your friends and compete. And and even if you get bumped out, you're like, hey man, I'm going to be here to support you regardless. So do your thing. And yeah, man. So that's kind of the progression the car had made over the years. And anybody looking to get into this, and I have buddies that still run the 1250 and 1150 indexes, and I'm like, if you're comfortable there, keep doing it, man. Just try and perfect that class, get your car dialed in for it, man, and hopefully you can take a win with you and take a trophy home and some money. So, and then I try and support those guys as well, all the time.
Even though
anything
the
they need.
950 guys should be pushed in the street eliminator, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I agree. Index racing's fun, for people that, like you said, that should be in a higher class still, but it's a fun class regardless. Any of the index classes, really. It's always been my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but sometimes those are the funnest to watch.
Yeah, really, it really is, especially, any of the classes you get down to the eliminations, it's it's a good time.
Yeah.
But
the index classes are nice, though, because they take people's wallets out of the equation to an extent. I understand that
yeah, definitely.
There's sandbaggers that'll, bring a 9.0 car and run the 1050 index just because they can pedal it.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean that they can win. You can catch those people sleeping. If you can cut a light, you can drive your car, you can win that class. Whereas, to compete in some of these,
like the quick 32 class or anything like that, you're getting deep pockets involved.
Yeah. And that's really at any event that you go to, not even just a shootout.
Yeah. Sure.
Index classes make it obtainable for the average Joe, who built his car in his garage to come out and be a part of the event and have some fun. Because, obviously nobody wants to come out and race to get knocked out first round. Everybody wants to feel like they have a chance to win, and so the index classes are a good place to do that. I remember going to the shootout years ago, in the early 2000s, and some of the cars that me and one of my other buddies that had taken, we were just dreaming, and that was when the shootout was bigger, and we couldn't even make it into the race. We wouldn't make it past qualifying because the classes used to pack out 32 cars.
Yeah.
And, you'd get 50 cars that show up trying to get in. And they didn't have index back then. They didn't have anything for the average guys that could race. So you just had to try your best and
hope for the best.
Man, yeah, some people just got those deep pockets and you just can't outrace their wallets. So
yeah.
It's nice to have the index classes. I do wish that we could do something about the extreme sandbagging. Like even the year that we had won with Craig's car. I mean, the guy was cool, but his car was a 950 car, and he was racing. He was racing the 1050 index.
Actually, it was funny too because that 1050 class that I won that year, we actually ended up doing a double breakout. But it was all a game at the end. Who was going to break out less? We knew we were racing each other at that point. So he was a buddy of mine from a previous couple of previous events. So
we had a 1030 car though. We weren't like
10, I think my fastest pass on that setup that year was a 1020 actually.
Yeah. We weren't bringing,
that was on the black setup. Yeah.
A bazooka to a knife fight like some people do.
Yeah. So it was actually a really nice feeling to win against somebody that was that much faster than me. I mean, and like I said, it's an index class, so anything can happen.
Right.
But on a double breakout too, like it's, that was definitely unexpected. So.
Well, heck yeah.
This episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by Inland DSM. Inland DSM is a Facebook community based out of Southern California since 2010. The community shares builds, pictures, tech, organizes local meets, and track events. Join the group on Facebook and check out their Instagram at Inland DSM. That's NLAND DSM.
So, Craig, thinking back to it, we kind of already went over all your different setups. Can you remember the setup on the car when it broke into the 10s for the first time?
Yeah. Let's see. I would have probably been on, and Soto, you might have to help me on this, but I think I was on the black. Yeah, I was on the FP black then.
It was still stock block.
Yeah, still stock block. I think we ran a 1060 pass, I think is what it was, on my FP black stock block.
With GSC head package.
Yeah, GSC S2 cams, head package, like he said, valve springs, retainers.
Lifters.
Yep, lifters as well, zero tick lifters. So, that was the first time I broke into the 10s, and before that, I think my 9 turbo, I think my fastest pass on the 9 turbo on E85 would have been like a 9.1, or not a 9.1, I'm sorry, 11.1, Jesus. That would have been like an 11.1 pass, I think, on the 9 turbo, and then that's when we said, okay, we're close enough, and we can't quite get there unless we go drastic and really start gutting this thing. So we're like, let's just go to the black turbo and start competing for that 1050 index. So. And that's what we ended up doing on the stock block, that's what we ran that 1060 on the stock block, and then after that, we turned it up a little too far, and everybody has their first engine go. And at that point, this was I think this was a testing tune. We were at a local track.
You were racing, so this guy shows up to the track.
That's a good story.
This guy shows up to the track. He had literally that day bought a Huracan.
No, Aventador.
Or an Aventador.
Lamborghini Aventador.
An Aventador.
Yeah.
And Craig's like, bro, this is my dream car.
I was talking to the guy, I was like,
super cool guy.
Yeah.
And he was like, you think we could race? He was like, it's just my dream car. I'd love to race it. He's like, yeah, sure. And so we were trying to stretch the legs of that stock block, and so we added some.
We turned it up.
Yeah, we turned it way up, and he won the race. For what it's worth, he drugged that Aventador by about a bus length. But then he kicked a rod and shattered. Well, not shattered, but he definitely put some nice chips in the windshield of the Aventador.
Yeah, I destroyed the stock block at that point, and the Lamborghini took some of the abuse. So, but the guy was okay with it, and he was real nice after the fact, and he basically told me that don't worry about it. He's like, I'll get it all taken care of. And I told him I was real worried about the Lambo more than my car. I blew up my engine, and I was more worried about the car that got the damage from the blown up parts. So I was like, it was just a weird time. But yeah, man, he was really nice about it. Like I said, though, but that was when the stock block had enough that day. So that's when we went to this used built block and ended up tearing it apart, just double check everything, and that's where we kind of landed with this one now. So that block that I had in the car, it was a 10.5 to 1 compression. It was bored 20 over, had CP pistons in it, Manley I-beam rods. It had a Manley crank, which I know a lot of people are not very fond of. But the car, I never had any other issues other than head issues, which I know I should have probably gotten the block O-ringed way sooner. But I'm one of those people that's just super impatient and doesn't like to leave the car down too long and just likes to be out there, driving it and enjoying it. So I ended up just like I said previously, went with the SE Vulcan cut ring. That was like the next best thing to get around the cylinder pressure issues, and like I said, that engine lasted a long time, and it still runs. It's when I sold the car, it still runs, and just needs some help, and it'll be back out there, I'm sure. But
yeah, it's all still in great condition. Honestly, if he would have kept it, the only thing that we were going to do is drill out the engine for bigger head studs to upgrade them.
Yeah.
And then slap it back together. Took no damage, so everything was happy.
Yep.
Just pushed a little bit of coolant, but nothing crazy. That engine was a trooper, man.
Yeah, they say that you find those engines that are just like they won't die, and that was one of them that you'd have to band-aid it, but that thing would just not die.
Yeah, we definitely hit it with the kitchen sink a few times. Unfortunately, we were actually trying to be sensible the last pass that it made, and we turned it down on the big end, and we're just focusing on the short track.
Yep.
And now I'm like, well, hell, we should have sent it to the moon on that pass.
And not only that, I mean that day we made that 960 pass. It was the DA was like 3,200.
Oh wow!
And it was a hot day, and if we would have waited later in the day and actually made that pass when it got cooler, that would have probably been a 930 or 930s, 920s pass if we would have turned it up and just waited. But we were we were just trying to make the A to B pass, get the short track dialed in for the shootout, and it's funny too because that day I told him, I was like, hey. I was like, if something happens, which I probably jinxed myself, but I was like, if something happens to this car, I used to say this a lot, but I'm like, I'm getting rid of it. I'm done, And, I'd said that in the past many, many times, and all my friends were like, yo, you're not getting rid of it. Stop saying it, And then it came to that point, and I actually got rid of it. They're like, I don't believe you actually did that. Everybody was just shocked. So.
Well, the funny thing is, too, is anytime we've ever dynoed the car, it's always been just Craig and I, and we have our group chat with all of our buddies, everybody does. And, every time we dyno it, we always like to mess with them, and they'd be like, "What's the numbers? What it make? What it make?" And we're like, "It made a mess on the dyno.
It made a hole in the block." We'd always like to keep them guessing. So
right, and so then this last time we went to the track, everybody's like, "What did it run? What did it run?" And we're like, "It's hurt." They're like, "No, it's not. Shut up."
Yeah.
So
all the crying wolf. They wouldn't believe us, but
yeah,
that's what happens.
Turns out.
Yeah.
Wow. So, Craig, and Soto, I mean, you guys both have lots of experience with the Evo platform. You think, Craig, if you was to get another Evo, you would go through those same steps again?
Well, and it's not out of the question that I might never, I might have an Evo again someday. Not in the foreseeable future, but it could happen. So, I think what I would do with the car if I were to do it all over again, and after I've already had that taste of how fast it's gone, I think I'd have to build another one, probably for the 950 index. I'd probably build one for the 950 index, and at this point, I would probably take my time and try not to be so impatient and actually get the bigger studs drilled out for the block and get the block O-ringed and do the other proper steps that I probably should have done with this one. But like I said, I'm just one of them impatient people that just likes to be out at the track and not waiting. So, that's probably the steps I'd go for next time for sure. And I'd probably keep that same 8269 on the car. I love that turbo. I mean, it did awesome this year. It was just a great setup that I had, and I'd probably try to make the same or similar setup definitely, and just shoot for that 950 index and maybe have that goal for World Cup again. But as of right now, that's probably where I'd be with it.
I think the biggest thing with these cars really is if you're going to do it and you're going to build a block and you think that you're going to want anything north of, honestly, 700-800 horsepower, take your time, get the upgraded head studs, get the block O-ringed, because it's going to save you in the long run. I think that's the biggest takeaway is I wish I could have, convinced him, but like he said, he had the parts, he had the ability to put the car together, and so we're like, all right, let's throw it together, let's get it running. And I mean, it's you get excited, and you get excited, you want to feel the power, you want to feel the upgrades,
Exactly,
and you get away from yourself sometimes. but definitely, that's really, it's funny. Everybody thinks that, driveline is the big downfall, but there's so much R&D that's gone into the driveline that you can make these drivelines pretty bulletproof. And then it's easy to overlook something like the cylinder pressure and lifting the heads with these things. So really, O-ringing the block and the upgraded head studs, that's the biggest thing.
And kind of commenting on that, like I said, the car, I had the stock T-case in that thing ever since 2017. I've never built it. I've always run, I think it was a Motul PA90 in it. That T-case, it lasted every bit of, I've got time slips in a bag, and it's just, there's so many of them. From all the passes I've made in that car, I had to be at least 60 passes on that T-case, and that T-case was still living. So
not including the Mexico passes.
Yeah, the Mexico passes. Sure, we'll talk about those.
The ones
But
you don't get slips for.
What's that?
The ones you don't get slips for.
Yeah, exactly. Those ones. The draggy passes.
Preloading is your friend.
Yeah.
That's the big.
It's funny too, because like a lot of these people, even in my hometown of Toledo, Ohio, a lot of these guys are like, how do you make an Evo last so long? They're like, every time I've ever seen an Evo make a pass, the T-case blows. I'm like, you just got to know how to drive these things, I guess. I don't know.
That's the thing is, DSMs and Evos get kind of a bad rap of being unreliable is what everybody always wants to say. But I'm like, man, our cars are really rarely down.
Yeah.
And if they are down, it's self-inflicted.
Getting an upgrade or something.
Yeah, it's generally self-inflicted, and we were doing, pushing limits that we shouldn't have been. But for the most part, you can build these cars very, very reliably if you do it right.
Kind of commenting back on that, what would I do if I had another Evo, if I went for it again? As much as I'd like to say it, I'd love to do another 950 car. I mean, to be honest with you, the goal would be, let's do two of them. Let's do a 950 Evo and then just have another one that makes 700, mid 700 horsepower, and just leave it as a street car and something fun to drive around, go to work, things like that. I mean, the Evo's an all-around platform, as everybody knows. You can do anything you want with that car. If you want to go take it in autocross, or you do like a circuit track, or even like everybody knows, drag strip. I mean, the car is just an all around. It'll do whatever you want it to do.
Definitely.
So I mean, like I said, if I could really do it, I'd love to have two of them. To just keep one for the track and another one as a fun mid 700 horsepower car. That's probably what I would really like to do.
Yeah. And that's not to get too sidetracked, but that's what kind of irks me with people who you don't race their Evo is, just like you were saying, the Evo, it was built to compete. So when you just put stretch tires on it and some camber, the car's not living up to its potential.
No, not at all. I mean, and I'll be one of those guys that say I'm not a fan of the stance or form, Stance Nation, or the guys that I like form over or function over form. The people are like, oh, I like form over function. It's like, dude, you're not getting the full, like you said, the full potential out of that car. I mean, it's fine, but like if you want to do something like that, go get a Honda Civic.
Right.
I'm sorry, but if you stretch tires and camber an Evo, like I don't like you already. I hate to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy. If you stance boy an Evo, we're not friends.
The Evo was
everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah,
we're not friends, and no, I don't want to tune your car. It's just the heritage the Evos have. It's a proud racing tradition.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's even circle back to that. I mean, if I was going to do another Evo, I mean, what I'd really like to do is an Evo 3. I mean, that's like my ultimate. Like, I'd love to pick one up.
Yeah.
That's where we differ, though. I'm an Evo 5 guy.
Yeah.
I've got my eyes on one, and I really, I'm thinking I need to add an Evo 5 to the collection.
Seems like the 6s are more around here.
Yeah.
5s are hard to come by. They're very, very hard to come by. But for me, that's the one. The 5 is what started it all for me. I've always wanted one, and now it's it's a reality. I can actually go out and get one. So probably not this shootout, but one of these shootouts you'll come by and you'll see an Evo 5 in our pits.
That'd be nice.
Not too well. this is going to air like the week before the shootout, so who cares? But AG Autosports is bringing their Drag Evo 6.
Yeah, the white one.
Back
the white
out.
one.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been following. Like I said, once you're into this community, you follow everybody that's always been fast, and things like that. You like to watch their progression and see what's like you said, see what's coming to the shootout and what you're going to expect. And which, commenting on that, that's the other reason why I was kind of sad to sell the Evo and let it go, but I knew what I wanted to go for with the next platform. Like I said, I was in between two choices, but the Evo or the shootout really made my final decision. And with all the hype around the shootout this year, it sounds like it's going to be a big event. Compared to the last few years, I know COVID had us all screwed up there for a while. And with the border being closed for Canada, things like that, the shootout kind of did diminish a little bit, but it sounds like this is going to be the year that it has a big comeback. And that's the other thing too, is I want to be a part of that comeback,
Yeah, for sure.
And on that topic of the shootout, just my personal opinion, I know there's been a lot of back and forth, guys on Facebook and with opening the classes and allowing more make and models. Man, I've been going to the shootout since 2005. I'm of the mindset, let everybody come, let anybody race. If they don't want to call it the DSM shootout, just call it the shootout. Where I'm at with it, me personally, I would rather see the event survive time and keep going than to die off because of lack of attendance.
Yeah.
Mostly because, all the big 3-day weekend events are somewhere else. We got to fly to Texas for TX2K. We got to go to Maryland. We got to go to Florida. We always got to go somewhere. This one's in our backyard, and it's such a good time. And I've literally never taken anybody to the shootout that didn't have fun and love it and want to go back. So I say let's share it with everybody and let's keep the good times rolling, man. Especially, I wish we could get back to the days of where camping out at the shootout was the norm, and it's just packed out because a lot of those friendships that Craig's talking about, it's not even during the day, because during the day you're racing, you're working on the cars, you're busy. It's when the lights go out and the campsites light up and you're just walking through the pits and talking to people, have a beer with somebody and sharing stories, where you're from, and it's just it's an experience unlike anything else. Any other race that I've ever been to. The shootout is unique in that way that you just create these bonds with people, and man, I would hate to see this event go away, and I know we're getting close to that, so let everybody come see what we've all been doing for the last 2 decades. Some of us 3 decades. Yeah. And experience why we love this event so much.
Definitely. Yep. The only way the shootout survives is by having it open to everyone.
Yeah.
I think that's just.
I know they did. I know. I think Busher did a poll last year on what do you guys think should be allowed to run or whatever, and everybody had an opinion, which I get it. Everybody's gonna have their own opinion on things, but I agree with Soto and the terms of, and I don't necessarily say let's make it an import versus domestic case, but let's not get too far away from the heritage of.
No, I'd say make it a Mitsu versus the world, man. Let anybody come and race. Here's the classes.
Yeah,
it's an Evo event. Yep, it's an Evo event. See if you can come take us out.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that would be
or
kind of a cool
a Mitsu event. I'm sorry, Mitsu event.
Yeah.
So Craig, kind of going back to what you were talking about with sticking with the shootout. What does the future of the Evo hold? I know that you kind of hinted at it earlier, but I'll let you go ahead and go into the full story here.
Yeah, so obviously the Evo has been sold, unfortunately, and that was kind of where I was heading towards. What do I want to do next? At that point when we did lift the head on the car, I had a mindset, I'm going to sell it. Then I kind of went back and forth and said, well, maybe I'll fix it. Then I started thinking about it some more. I'm like, you know what? I think I've done what I wanted to do with the Evo originally, which was break into the nines. And I finally did that, and I finally felt like I had relieved this weight or stress off my shoulders that I finally done it. So which to a lot of people that's not a huge goal, but for me, that was definitely big. I mean, 8 seconds would have been way sweeter, but for me to let the car go and to decide what my next platform was going to be, to be honest, I was between getting a Corvette or a new A90 Supra, and I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I was like, I really want to be able to compete at the shootout. So I was like, I know they got the A90 class, and not only that, I can still compete in the index classes and things like that. So the Supra obviously took over that decision real quick, and ended up picking up a 2020 launch edition Supra. And to go along with that, the guys at Grade A Garage, Matt, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this properly, Giuliano, he's been kind of talking to me here and there. He's one of my buddies. Me and his wife actually raced in the 1050 Index a couple years ago, and we kind of became friends after that. And I ended up beating her in the 1050 Index, and he was giving me shit about sandbagging her, but he's a good guy, and he's been kind of giving me some pointers and things to look out for as far as the A90 stuff. And this is a new platform for me, and for Soto as well to get into. So this is something we've been talking about for probably a year or so. Getting into the Supra platform itself, and we've been focused on the Evo that idea kind of fizzled out, but once this happened, it was kind of like, okay, let's bring that dream back and let's actually focus on this again. So, ended up picking up that 2020 Supra, and hopefully that'll be racing here at the shootout this year. I don't know what I have in store for it. I think I'm going to start out the 1150 Index with it after a couple of modifications, and that's kind of probably where I'll start this year, hopefully. And then we'll see what the progression holds for this thing over the next few years. The platform itself, it hasn't been out that long, and they've made leaps and bounds into the drag racing community, and I can't. The progression on these things it's just been crazy, and seeing that and knowing that, I was like, you know what, that's the platform I want to go with. Let's add 2 more cylinders to the pot too. So
let's see what these inline six.
Yeah, let's get into this inline six thing. So. I'm excited. To be honest with you, it's something I've always wanted was an inline six as well. Obviously everybody wants a 2J car, or some people want an RB car. Some people want an RB car, but the 2J has always been the king in that category, obviously. And I've always loved the tone of the inline six. And I tell you what, the new Supra is not too far off on my favorite sounds. So I'm happy with my purchase, definitely. That's kind of where we're going to start with this year and see where that takes us.
Heck yeah. Well, first off, Craig, congrats on the Supra. I think that's definitely the platform of the future for sure. I mean, when I was at World Cup and I seen Steve's black Supra do that wheel stand and touch the bumper, I thought, okay, these
are going to go far.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, is like, getting away from the all-wheel drive and getting into the rear-wheel drive thing again. That's a whole another learning curve again. I've been so focused on the all-wheel drive stuff that this is, like I said, there's going to be another little bit of a learning curve. So
I told him he's going to get bored. He's not going to know what to do with his hands in that automatic.
Yeah, that being an auto too, that changes the game a lot too. So
I don't know what to do with my hands right now.
Ricky Bobby. To be honest with you, elaborating on that as well, that 8-speed transmission of those things, I drove it on the test drive and I was hooked. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm taking this thing home. So
I'll tell you what, I heard somebody refer to it as God Strand, and they're not far off, man. That transmission is amazing. It's the same one that Dodge uses. Dodge bought it from BMW to use, and that 8-speed, I've tuned a bunch of them in Hellcats and Scat Packs, and that thing is just impressive, to say the least.
Yeah.
They ship fast, they're crisp, they hold power, they come out of the hole like a scalded dog. That driveline is really, really impressive, and it puts the power down, man.
I've been hearing people talk about these super rear axles not being the greatest, but I guess I'm gonna have to figure that out on my own. So
I would just figure out what Steve's doing and just do that.
Yeah, there you go.
My God, that was crazy. So, are there any long-term goals right now for you guys for the Supra?
As of right now, no. We're just gonna try and get it to the shootout and get it to compete. Go out there, have some fun like we always do. And
He says as of right now, no, but what that means is that
Yeah.
he hasn't raced any of our buddies yet because they're going to beat him because it's stock, and then the long-term goals will start.
I know. Robert makes some good bolt-ons for those. So those goals
I've been
are going to
talking.
change.
I've been talking to Wyatt already over at FP, and they're trying to light a fire under me. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, like I said, everybody gets bored eventually, and
Let him get drug a couple times by our buddies' cars, and he won't be having it.
yeah, everybody gets bored eventually and wants to get that next level. So, and I know I'm one of them people, and they all know me too well. So
Craig is not one that tolerates not being king of the hill for long.
yeah, that's true. I'm definitely not one that likes to be second place. That's for sure.
We'll say he's competitive. We'll put it nicely.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good word for it.
Might get to face off against Boostons in the 890 class again this year.
Oh, geez, that would be a dream. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know if my pockets are deep enough to get to that level.
Doesn't sound like the Demon's going to show up. So
yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, but especially for this shootout being one of the bigger ones that have happened over the last few years, people that come want to see. Everybody knows the car,
right?
And that's a lot of what people come to see is these cars that are just insane. Running low sevens, high sixes, or high sevens. These cars that are just insane with four cylinders, and that's what a lot of people come to see. So I know a lot of people will be bummed out if Booston doesn't end up showing up with the Red Demon, but.
And I don't want to be negative towards the shootout, but I think that's why the World Cup has become my favorite event of the year.
Sure.
So I know for a fact I'm going to see that. I know for a fact I'm going to see Aaron's car. All the fast Evos are going to be there, whereas the shootout, maybe.
Yeah, and it's had a lot to do with the payouts, but obviously we've been following the payouts on everything you've been posting on the MitsuTimes page, and it looks like there's some crazy things going on there, huh?
Yeah, that's really where it all started to go downhill for the shootout. Is the big names stopped showing up, and those are the names that draw in the people who aren't going to race, just the spectators, and it's a spectator sport. Can't have a race without them.
That's what pays the drivers, right?
Exactly. Yeah, nobody wants to go out and break their car that's got X amount of dollars into it and not be able to at least make some kind of chunk of change back,
Right.
So I get where a lot of people come from in that aspect, and as far as the heavy hitters.
Yep. So, Craig, besides the shootout, what other events can we catch you at for the rest of 2023?
Probably there's a lot of no prep events around the Toledo area. Milan holds a lot of things called Pour Your Own Puddle, and that
2K.
Possibly FL2K, things like that. I know we went to TX2K this year because it was going to be the last year in Houston. We've been to TX2K the last couple of years, not with my own personal vehicle, but with other people that we know that end up racing in those big events, and we just go to support them more than anything. It's it's a lot to travel and take a car with you. It's a lot of stress and things like that, and we just like to go. If we're going to travel, let's go and enjoy the event and support the people we know. So that's kind of where we go with that. But as far as the other events for me this year, it's just going to be local stuff. Maybe in a couple of years we'll see what happens. I would like to make it down to an FL2K or a TX2K. In the future, that's been another big goal of mine. So I'm not going to say it's out of the question at all. Especially with the new platform, it's definitely a high possibility that maybe not in 23, but 24, 25, I will definitely be at those events.
We might end up at World Cup this year. Depends on how things progress. We got a buddy of ours car that I tune that's all motor Honda that should be coming together pretty soon here. He actually just got his motor in from 4-piston. He picked up a Reaper from them, so
heck yeah.
You might see us there.
Yeah, not with my car, but we'll be there.
All right, Craig. So, and Soto, where can people find and follow you guys on social media so they can check out this new Supra and whatever else you guys are getting into?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is currently it's Ren Red, as in Renaissance Red, Supra, and that's my Instagram handle. And our Facebook page is Soto Tuning Solutions. If anybody has any questions on there, shoot us a message, and that's the easiest way to get a hold of us. We both run the page, so there. And Soto, I believe he's got TikTok, and I mean I'm not a guy that TikToks, but he's got a few TikToks and things like that, so he can elaborate on what those are for you.
I'm trying to figure out what my TikTok name even is, to be honest with you.
Post TikTok, I can't even think about it. Come on now.
It is Soto Tuned. Okay. Yeah, I mean, really, Soto Tuned, you can find me on anything. That's where I go by everything. I'm just, whenever I have time, I'll post stuff. Usually have something cool going on, so.
Heck yeah. All right, well, finally, guys, I always give people a chance to give a shout-out to anybody who's helped them get where they are, get their car where it is. Is there anybody that you guys want to give a shout-out to?
Obviously, I'm going to give a shout-out to Soto. I mean, he's been a huge part of this whole journey with me, and, that's why I wanted him on the podcast today, just because, I definitely, he's been through a lot with me, so definitely shout out to him, obviously, and shout out to a lot of my friends and family that have always been there to support me at the events. My dad was with me when I won the 1050 index, and he had never been in anything like that, so that was an awesome experience to have with him as well. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, anybody that's ever helped me throughout the journey as well, FP, awesome, yep, getting ready to mention them as well. FP, TRE, just a lot of great support in the community, and I can't thank those guys enough. Like I said, I mentioned previously, Matt from Grade A Garage, him giving me some pointers on the new A90 Supra platform. I definitely appreciate that as well. And I'm sure we'll be talking more in the future here. Very soon.
Racing always
yep,
supporting us with the dyno, and
yep,
one of the few all-wheel drive dynos in our area that we can use. They're great guys there.
Safe's an awesome guy.
Yeah. Big 2J guy.
Big 2J guy and a big-hearted guy. He's a real nice guy. So, yeah, he's a 2J king in the area. So I'm sure people have heard of him. Neighbor Racing.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, definitely a shout out to him for the dyno stuff. And it's just, he's helped out a lot too as well. So definitely a shout out to him.
All right. Thanks to both you guys for coming on. I'm so glad that we got a chance to do this and hear that people are moving on to other platforms but still have love for, their Mitsubishi roots. So thank you guys again for coming on, and I'm glad that we got to share this story.
Definitely. I appreciate you having us. It's been a long time coming, I'd say. So it's nice to have the day finally here. So
absolutely. Well, I'll see you guys at the track. Can't wait to hear from you soon.
Definitely. We'll see you.
See you there.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.